Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. We're dedicating today's special half-hour Memorial Day program to talk about military service. The most recent U.S. Census tells us there are more than 18 million veterans in this country, and that includes 100 veterans who attend the University of Vermont. Keith Silva has the story of one veteran at UVM who's learning what it's like to go from being a soldier to becoming a student.
The Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, better known as the GI Bill, gave veterans returning from World War II opportunities to start businesses, buy homes, and pursue an education.
Through the GI Bill of Rights, the government pays Sergeant Brown's school up to $500 a year, while Brown gets $50 a month for subsistence.
Like Sergeant Brown in this promotional film, today's veteran is going back to school and trying to readjust to being a civilian.
This sounds so cheesy, but I have like a thirst for learning. I always want to know stuff.
Stephanie Wabi is a combat veteran. A U.S. Army sergeant, she served in Iraq and Afghanistan as a line medic and rose to the position of battalion senior medic. With her hair down and wearing a hoodie, she admits she looks more average college student than war veteran.
The typical veteran, I feel like, for the regular person is someone with a high and tight, someone who is not necessarily a person of color, and someone who has a beard now, I'm assuming, you know, and I just don't fit in any of those categories. So I think my presence as a veteran is a little surprising to people, but it also, in a way, humanizes that veterans can be anyone.
Wabi enlisted in the Army out of high school. Her first assignment was Fort Riley, Kansas, 1st ID, 2nd Brigade. When she enrolled at UVM in 2017, she realized she wasn't in Kansas or the military anymore.
People would walk in late, and that never would happen in my time in the military. You would just get in trouble if you walked in late or interrupted a session or even just walked out when the class wasn't over. So it's not so strict, so regimented, and you kind of have to be malleable to those. You have to adapt to all the changes. You're not in the military anymore, and you kind of have to continuously remind yourself that you're not in the military anymore. If someone's late, that's on them. You know, you're not responsible for everybody, and that's fine. Yeah.
Once the Elysia Gauls move, it's back to the Romans?
Wabi is studying Caesar's Gallic War in the Department of Classics. If she isn't a typical veteran, then this isn't a typical class either. Students use dice, foam tiles, and a giant map to play out the different military campaigns. John Franklin is the teacher.
Those kind of games really help students to find the text more interesting. The text can be bewildering and boring because they have all these names you've never heard, place names, people names, like, these people mean nothing to me. But when you start seeing them in the games, like, so, you know, this, if I capture this city, it's going to prevent the Romans from, you know, going up that valley. And then when you run into those names again, the next week's reading's like, oh yeah, that's that place. I've done these kind of game pedagogy enhancements for a lot of ancient texts, and it really does work.
This is the third time Wabi has taken a class from Franklin. The first one was to study the Odyssey. The class was only offered to veterans attending UVM. At first, she dismissed it.
I thought it was just an advertisement, like junk mail, and I was on my way to deleting it, and then I read through it, and I thought, you know, why not? This is my first semester in a new school. I don't know anybody. I might as well do this. And when I went, it was really the most refreshing transition. It helped me really make friends and kind of understand myself through the Odyssey.
In a nutshell, the Odyssey is a story of a soldier returning home from war. Franklin patterned the course after a similar one taught at Dartmouth. He's taught the Odyssey numerous times, but never like this.
They had lots of observations and insights about the Odyssey that had not occurred to me because I was not coming to it from the perspective of someone that had served in war. So they, I mean, even though I was quite familiar with the story, they had interesting takes on different episodes that had not occurred to me. And then just to you get this glimpse into this whole world that they, have come out of. The military is a culture, and it's a close-knit culture. It's got its own language, its own customs, its own conventions, camaraderie, the sort of virtual family relationships, and all of that was new to me.
Studying the Odyssey with fellow veterans helped Wabi feel less isolated. The classroom discussions also ignited a passion she didn't know she had.
So I had dreams of becoming a cardiothoracic surgeon and returning actually to the military as an officer. Reality struck. I did not like my subject that much, and I found that I loved English much more. And I mean, thinking of Tim O'Brien, Sebastian Unger, Tim Hetherington, like people who had gone to war and written about it and communicated the severity, the urgency, and the importance of being in war or in the military itself, that kind of resonated with me much more than going back to war as a doctor. And so that's why I changed my major to English, to better communicate that. And I mean, I love it.
It's been great.
Writing gives Wabi a place to work out her time in the service and the adjustment she's made from military to civilian life.
The community that I have now, including non-veterans, they're so understanding, and they try their hardest to kind of meet me halfway when I'm going through like emotions about my past time in the service. It's one of those things where you feel like, I've squeezed everything out of this. Let me just be done with this. But I feel like there's still more stuff to squeeze out. And a lot of the time, these emotions come up in more intimate settings, like workshops, writing workshops. And so I feel like I'm exposing a lot of myself in these essays, and a lot of the people that are attending these workshops also come from different walks of life, and they're all very understanding, and they're all very, sensitive to what they say about my piece. It's not to say that they're tiptoeing or trying to hold back on their criticisms, but they're tactful and they think things through before saying something. And I think the community here is they're very understanding. I think they're very accommodating as well.
From being a soldier to becoming a student, this former GI has found a home at the University of Vermont. In Burlington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Vermont does not have an active military base, but there are about 2,800 children in the state with a parent serving in the armed forces. When those moms and dads are away for training or deployment, in a way their children are serving too. And for these young people, military service means making the best of a tough situation through dedication and resilience. Let's rejoin Keith for more.
As a senior at Thetford Academy, Gabriel Gates fits in with the other young men and women training for the spring sports season, with one exception. His dad serves in the military.
Just about everything I can remember is him in the military. The first day I was dropped off at kindergarten, my dad was in full uniform and went up to Burlington as soon as he dropped me off and flew to Tucson, Arizona to do Border Patrol in 2006. It's just been a part of everything.
Gabe's dad, Sergeant Joshua Gates, served on 2 year-long overseas deployments, which meant Gabe had to confront some big issues when he was young.
It kind of forces you to grow up and forces you to look at things like, yeah, he's at work, but work could lead to something bad and that he could not come back. You have to think about things from an age that's younger than most that understand the concept of those things.
Then, and now, most of Gabe's friends don't understand what it's like to have a parent who serves in the military.
When you're talking to your friend and you're like, yeah, my dad's gone, and they'll be like, yeah, my dad's gone too. My parents divorced. I see him every other weekend, something like that. But it's not the same at all, obviously.
Vermont is one of 8 U.S. states, territories, and districts without a military base. For the approximately 2,300 military dependents living in Vermont, that can feel isolating. The Vermont National Guard Family Readiness Center at Camp Johnson in Colchester helps combat that isolation.
Volunteerism is super important to us as a
Brian Stoudnauer is the lead child and youth program coordinator with the Vermont National Guard.
Their mom or dad signed up for the military. They did not. And so they were brought into this world being a military dependent. And the challenges and struggles that they go through as an individual are going to be more than a typical teenager, than a typical youth. And so it's super important to have programs and services for them to support them in their times of need.
Try northwest.
Stoudauer runs camps during school vacations and in the summer, like this drone camp that was held in partnership with UVM Extension 4-H. These events build lifelong friendships for these kids.
They have a network of peers, actual military youth peers that they connect to. And it's really great because we bring these kiddos back around school vacation times, around school breaks. We do periodic weekend programming as well. And when these kiddos come back together, it's amazing to see them just get right back into it. Just sets them all at ease and allows them to talk about the issues that are present for them being in military dependent youth.
Gabe serves on the Vermont National Guard Teen Council, which helps Stoudauer plan the camps and events for the Child Youth Program. As a veteran of this program, he appreciates what is done for him, his family, and other military families in Vermont.
Almost always when I'm at these programs, I'm with one of the friends that I've known for probably 10 years now. And we're still friends, and we talk and we hang out outside of camps and Child Youth programs. And it's a big help, and it sounds kind of cheesy, like, oh, find somebody to talk about it with, but it definitely does help. And those connections, even if you're not necessarily talking about your parent being deployed, you can look at each other and be like, yeah, man, it sucks, but it's okay.
Set, go.
Gates' experience of taking on a leadership role in the Guard's child and youth programs echoes the service by another member of the Gates family.
It's just where I happen to end up, and it's hard at times, but it's just someone needs to do it, and my dad happens to be the one that raised his hand.
Standing out by standing up. That's the life of a military kid. In Thetford, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Gabe. Joining me now are two guests. They are both members of the Military Kids Vermont team. Allison Smith works for UVM Extension as the 4-H Learning Experiences Coordinator, and Brian Stoudauer is a civilian who serves as the Child and Youth Programs Coordinator with Vermont National Guard Family Programs. Thank you so much for both for coming in. It's great. So, Allison, why don't you just describe what is Military Kids Vermont?
Sure. So Military Kids Vermont is a group of organizations across Vermont, and we're dedicated to creating experiences, programs, and support for youth of military families. We have groups represented in our organization, including the Vermont Army and Air National Guard, Military One Source, UVM Extension, the 4-H program. We also have the Vermont Youth Development Corps and the YMCA.
Wow.
And finally, we have some really dedicated community partners like Julie Thorpe, who help us to fundraise and organize events.
Fantastic. And Brian, talk about what you do and why it's important.
Yeah, so, arranging and organizing activities specifically designed and created for military kids is super important. We live in such a rural community here in Vermont, and the further away you get from Burlington, the more rural it gets, and these kiddos could be the only one in their class that are a military youth, and so having activities designed specifically for them, focusing on activities that and programming curriculum that add to their strengths, and focus, talk to their weaknesses as well. It allows them to engage and connect with other military youth is super important.
Right. It was really striking to me that, of course, there is no base here, so they aren't in that group automatically.
That's right. Yeah. They may be the only one in their class that's a military youth, maybe in their school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Allison, tell us about April as the month of the military child.
Sure. So April was first designated as Month of the Military Child by Defense Secretary Casper Weinberger. And so we've been celebrating since 1986 through the Department of Defense. And it's really our chance to highlight youth and dependents of military families and to talk about some of the sacrifices they make, and that oftentimes it's not just the family member that's in the military that's serving, but the youth are serving in their own way too, and that experience for them is very unique, especially living in a rural state like Vermont.
Right. So what kind of special skills or areas of focus do your programs take on?
Well, oftentimes we focus on programming just as we would any other youth. We really try to engage youth in skills or areas of interests or passions that they might have. But within that, we try to embed skills of resiliency, a lot of peer-to-peer connections, so helping them create that sense of community, and of course leadership skills as well. And so some of the topics we've covered, we offer camps either during school break or summertime. We have an annual drone camp, which is a partnership with the Rubenstein School. It's very fun.
It's really cool.
And our break camps often focus on anything from the watershed in Lake Champlain to topics in healthy living to just getting outside and having fun with each other.
Awesome. So Brian, what can communities, as you were saying, some are very isolated, they're all over Vermont, what can communities do to support military kids and families?
Yeah, so number one, just realizing that they're in our communities, you know, and along with that, knowing that they're not the ones that signed up for the military, right? Their parents signed up the military, they were kind of born into it, and absolutely they're super proud and loyal to their parents that are in the military and to the military and to our state and country. But knowing they're there, being aware that they're there, and being open to them, right? We tend to put ourselves in little bubbles sometimes as we're moving throughout our community, and sometimes we say things that might be, that we don't necessarily approve of that the military is doing at that time, but knowing that there's ears around that hear that and that impacts them if we're speaking negatively about these things, and just having a level of awareness that they are around is super important.
Terrific. And are there things that you've noticed that military kids are particularly good with? I think of my friends who grew up in military, and they're just, they have it together. There's something very together about them. What have you noticed? There
really is. They're really thrust to growing up a little earlier than the typical youth would be out in the world. They're as we've mentioned a couple times, and we focus on in our curriculum. They're super resilient. They tend to bounce back from things really easily, and they're extremely respectful. I've worked with a lot of different youth populations in my career, and in this one I find to be super respectful, as well as being super helpful also. I take groups into the field, and when it's time to do things, the military youth are there to get things done then.
Right. Well, I was really impressed by Gabe as well. I mean, he just seemed so aware of many things and had a deepness about him. Do you find that's true with a lot of these kids?
Certainly. Some of the military youth I've worked with within the 4-H extension program, I feel that many of their experiences that they've had have forced them to look at life in a different way. And so even the dedication that they might bring to their 4-H projects, in relation to other youth, I think that there's some insight into the future, and it gives them extra determination and drive. And I just echo what Brian said about being real team players and the first to pitch in and help out when they see someone else who needs help.
Are they more at risk or not because you teach so much resiliency, or
they're absolutely more at risk, Fran. The stressors that are on them are greatly increased due to their parents being involved in the military. Their parents they leave once a month for 2 days a month.
Right.
Every year they leave between a 2 and 4 week training during the summertime, spring or summer, and they could be deployed for 12 months or more at any point in time to do anything either for our state or for our country.
Yeah, really something for all of us to keep in mind. So how can military families find out about what's happening?
Great. So there's a Military Kids Vermont Facebook page. So we're definitely out on Facebook page. You can find some of our activities through the UVM Extension website, and then through the Vermont National Guard Family Programs website as well.
And our thanks to Allison and Brian for being with us. There's another way that the Extension 4-H program supports military kids. 4-H offers specialty camps for young people. Rebecca Gollin tells us about a drone camp specifically for children with a parent in the Air Force.
There's a hiker lost in the woods. A drone has been deployed to help the search and rescue team on the ground find him.
Go 10 paces forward.
Luckily, they locate him just a few minutes later and are able to deliver critical supplies.
Found him.
Perfect. Come on back. Tell him to stay there.
Give him the bug
I'll
spray.
stay here.
Give him the bug spray.
Thank you, Tyler. Give him the bug spray, please.
It's just another day at drone camp.
I heard the words drone and camp together. That immediately got me interested. And then my parents explained it to me, like we'd be flying drones, learning about how to make maps and how to use the drones to do more than just leisurely fly around. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yesterday you learned that you can actually make maps.
The camp is being held at the University of Vermont, and it's focused on introducing these campers to different types of drone technology, as well as general safety and risks involved in using that type of craft.
My first thoughts before coming to drone camp was just like flying the drone around and just having a good time, which is also what we did. But we got to learn more about the actual drones, like the EB and the Phantom and the Bebops.
The campers did get a chance to fly some small drones and test their skills on an obstacle course.
All right, give her a go.
So just push up.
Yep, that take off.
And then you guys did a little bit of obstacle course and you got to fly some drones yourselves. How did that go?
Personally, I didn't do very well. I didn't have very good depth perception, so I couldn't see the furthest cone. But other people seemed to have fun with it too. I had fun with it. I wasn't really going for time, but I still did pretty bad.
It was a little hard because it was pretty much a video game controller, but I don't play video games, so it's harder for me. Though other people who play video games were able to do it a lot easier. It was also really hard because it was windy, so that affected the drones a lot because they're so lightweight.
Despite the challenges, the campers had fun and learned something about drones at the same time. But that's not the only thing these kids are getting out of the experience. This camp is funded by a grant from the Air Force, and it's geared toward military kids who have a parent or caregiver who's active or retired from the Air Force.
Nationally, 4-H has had a partnership with the Department of Defense for many, many years. And one of the ways that 4-H is able to participate and to support military kids here in Vermont are through grant opportunities.
The idea is that giving these kids the chance to get together and have a fun camp experience helps build a community they might not otherwise have.
Military kids, especially here in Vermont, there aren't active duty bases. They are geographically dispersed, these families, and sometimes they don't know any other military kids. So being able to provide these opportunities where members of this population can come together and in a fun environment, make friends.
It was a great way for like people to bond, especially like military kids and Air Guard kids, just to like bond together and like have like the same kind of background, I guess, and you get to meet a lot of new people. I just wanted to go because I have other friends from other places, like other camps that I met here, and I liked that. That was pretty cool, being able to be like, oh hey, I know that person. Let me walk over and say hi, so that way you weren't like all alone and walking into it.
My dad was in the Air Guard, retired. And that did interest me because I am looking at being in the military, and drone flying seemed to be a good position. So learning about drones now and how we can use them for more than just having fun flying around and almost hitting trees could be used to help people. So that kind of persuaded me into trying it.
You can attempt to land in the box for bonus points.
After the search and rescue and obstacle course, staff from the UVM Spatial Analysis Lab, who are leading the camp, took data and imagery of the UVM campus. They then went into the computer lab to teach the campers how to download those images and make maps.
You can make detailed maps, like you can build things using drones to do the layout. Because, for example, like when we used the Phantom to take pictures of Southwick Hall, we did that, well, we broke up into 4 groups and each group did it. And then on the 3D model, we were able to take measurements of it and see like the arc, the X, Y, and Z.
I thought it was pretty cool that we could take a few pictures, 10 to 20 or so, and make a 3D model out of it. I was surprised how detailed it got, with the exception of a few pieces of the model missing, as the drone didn't get those parts. So that was very interesting, that we could make a 3D model out of just some pictures from a drone.
Kleinman says it's all about giving kids a chance to find something they're inspired by.
It's really about helping youth find their spark by providing opportunities for kids to find something that they're passionate about or interests, and we're trying to expose them to those opportunities. Once the youth finds that spark or finds that connection, it begins to send them on a positive trajectory, and so hopefully the path that they take through life will build off of that, and they can provide, learn about mentorships or different opportunities that will encourage and support that interest that they might have. So whether it's animals, whether it's drones, whether it's photography, whether it's rocketry, whether it's really anything, we're just about providing those different types of opportunities, bringing kids to them and hoping that they can find their spark and set them on that positive trajectory through life.
So did you like it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this camp. It was a lot of fun.
I liked everything so far. The counselors were fun. All the professional drone flyers, they were all fun and easy to work with because they made it easy to work with. So it was a very good experience flying and watching drones fly. So that was good camp.
It's a 4-H partnership that's helping Vermont's military kids soar and giving them a safe place to land. At the University of Vermont, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
What a great time. 4-H is offering another drone camp for Air Force dependents. It's taking place the week of June 24th. For more information, call 800-571-0668 or visit the website uvm.edu/extension/youth. From all of us at Across the Fence, our best wishes for a safe and happy Memorial Day. And once again, thank you for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.